Hi everyone, this is CricketSong with Lunar Wisdom and you're watching Starting Out Solitary. This is sub-week and it's week 157 and the topic for this week is college and paganism. How do you deal? So, I don't know how much I have to contribute to this topic, being that yes, I did attend college, but I graduated in 1991. So it's been, what, 17 years since I've been out of college. And when I was in college, I wasn't pagan. So the only things I can really contribute to the conversation is looking at the situations I dealt with when I was at college, when I attended college. It was away from home for me, so it was my first time living away from home in dorms all 4 years, and seeing what I sort of experienced, and if I was pagan at the time, how I might have come to practice paganism or specifically witchcraft, knowing what I know now. So my contribution to this conversation is going to be, understanding for me what my college experience was about, and then hindsight, understanding how I could incorporate my practice in an environment such as college. What I can suggest is sometimes practicing paganism in college is very similar to practicing paganism in a home, in a household, or in an apartment with other people who may not be of the same belief as you. So if you're pagan and you're living in an environment that is Christian, I can relate to that, because for a while I lived at home with my mother and father, and I was a grown adult with 2 children, and I had to move back home after a divorce, and I was pagan at the time. So it was very restricted to me. So I can relate that experience to a college experience if you're living in a dorm. Now, the first thing that comes to mind when I think of this is the idea of not being able to have, an open flame in your dorm, not being able to burn anything. So forget about incense and forget about burning candles. At least for me, that wasn't allowed in the dorms. And then I had, for the first year, 2 other roommates. So I was in a room, myself and 2 other girls. And then sophomore year, I had me and another roommate. And then the last 2 years, I had a room to myself because I was a resident advisor, an RA, both last 2 years of my college life. But even having my own room, there were still restrictions, such as, again, no open flame and no burning anything in your room. So that would put a damper on my practice, because I love to burn things. I like to burn herbs, have loose incense. I love having lit candles. So that, for me, puts a restriction onto my spell casting and my rituals, because I do ritual spell casting, meaning I cast circle and I do all that. Now, living with people who are not pagan, who are not witchy, and even if I were to live with pagans and other witchy people, we may not practice the same way. We may not be at the same sort of energetic level. Our intentions may not be the same. We may actually be in conflict when it would come to specific spell casting. Maybe my morals, maybe I don't have an issue with cursing, but perhaps my roommate is totally against that kind of spell casting. So that you may have energetic conflicts. Even though you get along and you respect each other's beliefs and practices, when it comes to actually casting your circle or casting your spell, if you're living with someone who is in direct opposition to your intention, it can affect and put up resistance where there wouldn't be any if you lived alone. So these are things that you are going to want to consider when you are actually practicing magic within a college dorm or within wherever you're living or whatever you're dealing with when you're talking about living with others. And I'm really just approaching this college and paganism in this sort of way, and looking at how my energetic intentions and beliefs may be influenced or affected by those I live with, especially if I'm living away from home. Now, there are certain things that I would suggest when you are living in such a restricted environment, like meditation. For me, in my personal practice and all the students and people that I've practiced with, we always talk about meditation being a very important part of a magical practice. That meditation will put your brain and your mind in a state of acceptance. It's almost like being hypnotized, but you're putting yourself in this state. And in that state, in that mind frame, in that place of perception and altered state of consciousness, it allows you to visualize. And when I talk about visualization, I'm not just talking about imagining. I'm talking about experiencing something. And this is a very basic part of any sort of magical practice. You need to experience it before you can manifest it. Meaning that in this altered state of consciousness, if I want to manifest something very simple, for like an apple, I want to manifest an apple in this reality. I'm going to put in my intentions in manifesting an apple in this reality, the physical reality. So I would go into that meditative state. So in order to get into that meditative state, I want a meditative practice built up so it becomes easier and easier to get into that altered state. So I get into that altered state, into my meditative state, and I'm going to visualize this apple. I want to see it. For me, it would be a green Granny Smith. A green apple, it's shiny, I want to see it. I want to smell it. Granny Smith apples have a very tart smell. It's not very sweet, it's very tart. So I can smell it. I want to hear it. When I bite into the Granny Smith, it's crunchy. I want to hear that crunch of that Granny Smith apple. I want to taste it. My mouth is watering as I'm talking about this. I want to taste what that Granny Smith apple tastes like. I want to feel it, the smoothness of the skin of the apple. I can feel it, I can taste it, I can smell it, I can hear it. My mouth is so watering. I'm gonna have to go have a Granny Smith when I'm done making this video. In that altered state of consciousness, when I do this visualization and I experience the Granny Smith apple with all my senses, that is when I know I'm able to manifest it in this reality. I live like I already have that Granny Smith apple. That is visualization, and that's where magic is performed. When you do that visualization, you then bring that energy of that thing, in my case, the Granny Smith apple, into this physical reality. That is the basis of my witchcraft. That is the basis of magical practice. So no matter where you are living, whether you're living in a college, whether you're living in a very restrictive environment with people who don't believe in what you do, or you're not able to be open about what you believe and what you practice, that is how you can build a very strong magical practice or a paganistic type practice while you're living in college, while you're living away from home in this very restrictive environment. And then when you're able to practice, when you're able to get away, perhaps for me, when I lived in college, my college was in New Hampshire, there were these walking trails in the state park that wasn't very far from the college campus, and I was able to get there frequently. So I would go on nature walks. I would walk through the trails in the forest and commune with nature, be able to really get in touch with the elements and build a relationship with air, water, fire, earth, and spirit while away from the very restrictive environment. So even though I wasn't a practicing pagan, I still had an affinity for nature. I should have known, right? So getting out there, doing things like that, getting outside and connecting to the land that you're in, along with meditation and visualization, are ways that you can practice. Now, if we're talking about scheduling and trying to deal with having a spiritual practice as well as a workload that you may have when you're in college, and maybe you have a part-time job too, that comes down to priorities. What's most important to you? And making every mundane task a spiritual task. So taking your morning shower isn't just about getting physically clean. It's about a purification process. It's about visualizing the negative energies, the stagnant energies being washed away down the drain with all that dirt. It's about brushing your teeth and brushing away any negative talk. It's about cleaning and purifying your words. Brushing your hair isn't just about getting the tangles out, but it's about combing away any negativity that your hair may have caught, you know, acting as sort of spider webs to catch things, clearing that out. Cooking or eating or drinking, it's not just about the act of nourishing your body. You can imbue your drink and your food with specific intentions and then consuming that and taking that in. One of my favorite things is to imbue a glass of water with self-love. You know, you can even put some quartz crystals in your, stones, tumbled stones in your water, or set your water on, have quartz crystals around your glass of water and then drinking it because you've imbued that water with self-love, and then you're drinking it and you're feeling that, you're taking that into yourself. So any of your usual mundane acts can become very spiritual, and it can connect you to nature, to spirit, to whatever it is you're working on within your spirituality, within your paganistic or witchcraft practice. It's balancing. It's all about, finding ways to incorporate your spirituality so it's a part of your everyday life. Hopefully this answered the question. I hope I did okay. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments about this topic, so make sure you put comments and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. It's always a pleasure, and thank you for allowing me to be part of this wonderful collab. I look forward to the next video. And as always, I love you. Blessed be.